going into the pandemic, there was panic, there was reason for fear. We didn't know what was going to happen. And we have in the US in particular this enormous spike in unemployment. And rightly, the Fed and first the Trump and then the Biden administration started providing some social benefits, some health care, all things I supported. But what was amazing and became evident within the first few months was that people adapted. They set up new businesses. They moved to new jobs. They arranged care. That doesn't mean we should leave them to that. It's better that we didn't. But we, as economists, and particularly people who are on the progressive side, where I sort of am, we understandably worry a lot about people buffeted by large shocks that they have no fault in and they can't control. But what I think COVID showed us is people's ability to adapt to these shocks is much bigger than we worried about. And that leads into all kinds of positive, though not intended, labor market changes in the US that I think came out of this process.
One of the things, Adam, I think folks are concerned about is the economic divide in this country may have been even exacerbated from even prior levels by this pandemic. Just simply, it could be as simple as some people can afford to work from home. Some jobs you can't do that. How big of a concern is that for you?
I mean, Paul, you're absolutely right. And I mean, it doesn't get much more basic and important than what you said, that people have different levels of income, different levels of wealth, particularly in the US, have different vulnerabilities. Nonetheless, it's more about, let's call it the health gradient than the economic gradient over the last few years. So what we've seen is people who didn't have good health care, people who had pre-existing conditions, which is associated with socioeconomic status, people who had less access to medicine, and people, unfortunately, who were less educated and more willing to believe lies and fears about vaccinations, they had much worse health outcomes, much higher mortality and morbidity, as they say. But on the economics, what we've seen for the last few years is we've actually seen a closing of the income inequality. We've seen much more growth in real income for the lower end of the income distribution than for the higher end. And again, I don't think anybody else was expecting that going in.
Just as a general statement, do you buy the new productivity, and is it just simply total factor productivity, the oddities of technology over on the right side of the equation?
Tom, I am reluctantly a productivity bull. I think it's a productivity two-step. The first is what we've seen for the last year and are seeing still is this labor market transition where millions of lower income workers were more willing to take risks and have more of a sense of backstop and are moving in large numbers to bigger employers and becoming more productive. And I think that's what we're benefiting from. I think we're at the start of a boom created by generative AI. You've had many guests. I know you've been talking about this way early, Tom. We don't know when that's going to hit. We don't know how big it's going to hit, but it's pretty certain it's coming.